We're Rage Badger Gaming. Today we're going to be doing a little mini guide to the CIRLES class. Summoner! How does it work? Before you start playing this class, you should understand how monster behavior works because you will be summoning a lot of friends and your friends are going to act on their own. They are fully sentient. If you've played other classes that have summoning things, they'll work the same way. You will have some cards that will allow you to control where they go, so you can get them to do what you want them to do.
The Summoner is one of the more, what I've seen on forums, more maligned classes, and I think it's very misunderstood, and it just has a very high skill floor. The class actually can do a lot and has a lot of damage output potential. You just need to be able to play it effectively, and we'll teach you how.
Before you play, here are 4 things that you need to get a handle on. Initiatives are important. Take a look at these cards. There are a lot of late initiatives, boo, but do it correctly and you win.
You actually have several early initiatives as you level up, and we'll get to those later. And you've got some decent initiatives on the level 1 cards. If you have the ability to manipulate initiatives, such as via Boots of Quickness, that will dramatically improve when you can go. And a lot of times it's very good to summon late, then go early the next round so your summon can do something, and then you can manipulate and do some of your own actions and possibly protect your summon. Also, know your enemy. Take an idea of like, what are we fighting? What initiatives should I be aware of? Are they gonna pop or retaliate really early and just kill everything I summon? Just try to bear those in mind if you're aware of what you're fighting.
Don't bring the same cards in your hand every scenario. Every scenario is different. You should adjust accordingly.
If you're bringing like, oh, I've got a lot of pierce attacks, but there's no shield, switch it out. If you see that there's a bunch of enemies with poison and wound, you actually have several heals. And there's a lot of things you can bring. And people who stick to the same static hand might find the class more frustrating just to saying, oh, this wasn't good, that scenario. Well, take a look at what you're about to fight and adjust.
Use your command cards wisely and get your Pokemons in the correct position so they survive.
Sometimes you'll already be in range to attack things and be like, hey, that's okay. But the abilities say like they can move with you controlling it and attack with you controlling it. So if you've already poisoned an enemy with your wild animation, consider targeting another enemy and poisoning them. And maybe they're already within range, but you're about to clear the room. Maybe consider pushing them up to where they're closer to that door. And instead of like, oh, it's lagging behind and has a move of 1. Well, you can move it whatever direction you want. Get it closer.
Like Brett alluded to earlier, when you release your Pokemon is important.
If you summon your wolves and then the thorn shooter, if you do that, they're going to attack and then they're going to get poisoned after that. And you might go, well, I could have attacked them with poison. Well, summon them in the correct order. If you summon your thorn shooter first, they're going to poison the closest enemy to them, and then whatever summons you follow afterwards are going to probably dogpile on them and finish them off with much higher attacks because they've been poisoned. Likewise, whatever you summon first is going to get attacked first. So your thorn shooter might be your first thing you summon, but it'll be very far away. So whatever you summon next is likely going to be what's going to be getting hit. So keep that in mind as you drop all of your summons.
First card we're going to talk about is Unending Dominance. It's a double loss. The bottom half is like a Diet Ether, which you're going to use to get your summons back.
Only 4 cards, but still good. There will be some scenarios where you realize, oh, this is going to be over quickly, and you may not even need to get all your losses back. If so, create that Lava Golem. Every time he attacks, you get to infuse fire. He does an attack 3 with wound every turn, and he has 7 health. Not only that, but you get a nice amount, 6 experience when you put it into play.
Jesus Christ.
Attack 3 plus wound every round. He actually has a lot of damage output. So consider him for some of those scenarios that say survive for 10 rounds. Even with short rests and playing 1 loss every time, you can survive 10 rounds without even recovering any of the losses. You'll be fine. So drop this guy in and make him go to work.
Rack that EXP.
Bam!
Next is wild animation. The bottom is a nice move and element creator. And the top is a pew 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 thorn shooter.
Yeah, it's great. Also, if you want to consider for the future enhancements, Thorn Shoot is probably one to do. Improving its movement or its damage are both great options. Ultimately though, a range 4 summon is usually enough where you can outrange some of those really nasty retaliates, including the Flame Demon's range 3 retaliate, which would kill this in one hit. Not only that, attack 2 and poison every turn means that as long as this guy's in play, being able to deal, I mean, effectively, it's basically 3 passive damage every turn, give or take, depends on really how much, but it usually adds up to more, but.
So this should be your first Pokemon you put into the battle.
Yeah, and it makes all your other Pokemon just perform better, because it's like, hey, I'm gonna poison them, and everything else that piles on, they're gonna have +1 attack. Especially goes well with those Spirit Wolves.
Speaking of living in nights, not only do you get 1 wolf, you get 2 wolves. Inside you, there are 2 wolves.
2 wolves for the price of 1. It's really good. 3 health, 3 move, nice. Attack 2 with Pierce 2. You get 2 of them. Then once you lose it, if you have to summon them back, you get 2 more wolves. Cool part is, if your wild animation goes first and poisons them, you get an attack 2 with poison, then 2 attack 3s with Pierce 2. That drastically outclasses all other classes at this point with just 2 level 1 cards. You have to protect them and be a little bit creative, but with some initiative management, you should be able to keep these in play much longer than if you just summon them, let them run in and die. Be careful.
Next is Volatile Flame, and the bottom is nice for when you don't want to lose this card quite yet. Attack on the bottom is always great, and it's a ranged attack.
Yeah, and it infuses fire. So you'll notice the first 3 cards we revealed all infuse elements on bottom. These will be important later when you actually have these element burning cards, which we actually have a couple we're going to talk about now. But the top is actually really interesting. The top is good and bad. If you just use a bottom half attack, that's nice. However, there will be some scenarios where the top is great because first off, it'll eat a hit for you. It'll run right in there. It only has 1 health. It will die. It'll do 1 weak attack, so 1 hit, and then it'll blow up. Usually we've seen usually 3 enemies. So the weird part is I've seen the effort that this gets is usually 2 to 5 damage prevented and roughly 13 to 14 damage, which is way better than almost all level 1 losses. It's a good card.
Next is Biting Wind. Nice bottom heal, because everyone needs one of those now and again. And the top is a ranged attack that you can buff up with air.
Yeah, so if you haven't decided to use wild animation, you can actually use the wind you get from that to improve this attack. But beyond that though, it's got a decent initiative at 25, which you direly need better initiatives, and a bottom heal.
Next is Black Fire. It's a weak attack, but it puts wound on 2 dudes, and wound is really handy.
Yeah, so range 5 is great, target 2 is great, and if you put fire into play, boom, you wound 2 enemies. Great. You will need the bottom half of Volatile Flame to infuse that fire, but luckily, hey, it's a good card. Initiative's decent too. The bottom half's not great, but not terrible.
Next is Forge Ferocity. Bottom half is a late shield. What the f? Who designed this card?
If you do use the bottom, you have to pair it with a really early initiative, because 96 shield 1. Yeah, it only affects yourself and all your summoned allies too, so it's not even all allies, just summoned allies. Note, this says all summoned allies, so if you have a friend who's summoning allies, it actually will affect them too. The top half is at least a decent low-level summon. It really loses a lot of power with level, because shield 1 when 5 health will keep it alive for a while. Attack 1, retaliate 1 it's pretty good if you unlock this low levels, but if you've unlocked this mid prosperity, you're just probably never going to use this card.
Next is Bonded Might. This helps you control the action of your Pokemon. And bottom is a loot one.
Yeah. Between this, Bonded Might and Mighty Bond, the top half is literally the same. 1 experience. Keep in mind, you can move them, even if they're already in range. Maybe consider oh, that enemy is going to move up and attack. I don't want my wolf to die. move the wolf in a position where it can still attack, and then get that nice attack with it. Or consider moving that thorn shooter up. If you do have the lava golem in play, this actually has a lot more effort too, so consider it always in those situations. I think Mighty Bond is a little bit better because jump 4 is generally better than loot 1.
Who the hell named these?
Mighty Bond and Bonded Might. I think Isaac.
Yeah, no one is ever going to confuse those two at any point.
Yes, the fact they have the same top halves too. Yeah.
Ethereal vines. I'm imagining a Harry Potter scene where they're all tangled up in the devil's snare. It targets 3 hexes and immobilizes them. So I guess if they're all standing close together, it's worth doing.
Yeah, especially if you're fighting melee enemies, you might probably are only going to get a couple with it. It's very rare you'll get all 3 melee enemies lined up and then immobilize all 3. It happens,
Could
but
be
not
better.
Yeah. However, immobilizing all of them, you do get a nice little tickle of attack 1 on everything in the area too. So
Tickle's exactly right.
yeah, it's a decent card. Initiative 30, that's fine. It's a decent card. I rotate it out pretty quickly and use it situationally though.
Next is Unwavering Hand. The top half is a really pretty nice heal.
Yeah. Range 3, heal 3, anything. Doesn't even have to say summoned ally. Glad we have that off of it. And experience. Hard to complain.
Conditional things are annoying.
Yeah. Decent heal. The bottom half is you mind control an enemy to move 1. I love these when we're fighting archers, which usually ends up screwing over the summoner because they have to run over and the minions get shot anyway.
Or if there's a trap on the map.
And the archers can drop traps. You can make them walk into their own traps with this. Or if you see like, hey, there's a stun trap over there, make the enemy walk into it. It's pretty solid. This card routinely saw my hand even all the way up to high levels. So always consider bringing this, especially if your party needs healing.
Another level X card. Leathery wings. Bats are cute.
Bats are cute. Fly 2 is nice. 4 health is pretty good. But every time I consider this, it's always I'd just rather bring the wolves, honestly.
So let's look at gear. Stamina potion, just automatic, just do it.
Yep.
And we mentioned this earlier, the boots of speed, so you can be more flexible in your initiatives. And some other options to consider: Cloak of Pockets and Empowering Talisman.
Yeah, there's a lot of small items. You can use a lot of small items to summon more allies, so you might need the Cloak of Pockets. The solo item's also good, but we'll get to that in the advanced video. Perks are really nothing special here. The cool part is you can get rid of all of your negatives. Literally no negatives. It's great, but you have a lot of those +0s in it. So get rid of the -2 and then the -1s, thin it out as quickly as possible. Whenever you want to, choose to add the ignore scenario effects. It doesn't affect you as much because adding 3 curses, you're going to be drawing a lot of attacks anyway from summons, so it'll usually only pop off maybe a couple damage. So it's not as big to you, but however you feel appropriate, take it, and then start to remove the -1s with +1s after that. By that point, the rolling modifiers just ignore the creating random elements. Those are useless, don't go for them.
That was the quick overview of the summoner. If you have any questions, just shoot them in the comments below and bro will get right on it.
I guess that's my job now.
He literally answers every question. Thank you to our patrons. We'll be shooting out another patron poll. Get your feedback, let us know what you want to see.
Be sure to like and subscribe.
Hopefully we'll be streaming on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the near future, and thanks for watching.